It has been few years since the summit, and there was no sign of war between Irotagarap and Anukes. Rather, the two nations have been engaging with provocations. It almost seemed that we could never see any war soon, until one dark night in the land of ice. They said it was a night of celebration in Asamalak, the night to celebrate the birthday of Princess Ibanez, even though the princess had not aged since she turned 18. It is said that the leader of Asamalak is granted power to command time and space. Each leader would choose its royal guards and grant them power fitting their roles. On the night of the celebration, the princess was with her two guards, Teen and Elisha, whom are also her advisors. They were walking in the frozen garden, the most beautiful place in Asamalak. Flowers made out of ice, frozen trees, and during nighttime the moon and the stars reflects through the glacier covering the garden. As they were walking, Princess Ibanez suddenly fell down on her knees. The people in the garden were filled with concern. The two guards were shocked and confused as they tried to help her up. They asked her what was wrong. The princess instructed them to take her to a quiet place. They took her deeper in the frozen garden. On the way, the princess was feeling dizzy, but Teen balanced her walk. They reached the garden offices, which are buildings made out of ice that houses workers who maintains the gardens. They placed the princess on one of the office chairs. The princess said to them, "We do not have any more time to waste. I started to have these visions this morning. At first I thought it was just a nightmare, but up until now all the visions I had have all came to be." Elisha asked her what visions had she had. The princess, without delay, replied, "Our nation is about to be attacked." The two guards were shocked and more confused. Teen, trying to comprehend what she just heard, she asked the princess to explain more. The princess further explained that the first attack was done on her. They had found a way to bind her powers. She had a vision where a powerful witch was performing a dark, powerful spell to bind her powers. That is the reason why she collapsed in the garden. She continued to say that she felt time moving faster as she tried to stop it. Nothing happened. That is when she realized that she lost her powers. Elisha tried to shake his concerns and became more alert, and assumed that if the princess saw a witch, that means Irotagarap would be the one that is going to attack them. The princess, concerned by her visions, further explained that the king of Irotagarap has lost his senses. He thinks by invading Akimalak, he will gain more ground to plan an attack on Anukes and use the nation's weapons of ice to fight against the fire army. Elisha said that they need to act fast in Oder to stop Alucard and his army from invading them. The princess, with nothing but a defeated tone in her words, told her advisors that it will be close to impossible to stop the evil king without her powers. She then continued to say that they need to think of something to protect the people, because when the enemy invades, they will kill anything that they see. Elisha quickly alerted the guards and sent them to the gates to delay the attack as they evacuate the people to a safe place. He then asked the princess if there was another way to get her powers back. She replied and told him that it could only happen if they found a more powerful witch. At that point, it was impossible because all the witches happens to be their enemy, and no one will dare to go against their evil king. She further explained that the witch who bind her powers said that the spell she cast will last for 100 years. The princess's anger could be seen by Elisha and Teen. She declared to her guards that when she awakens 100 years from this day, the world will be swallowed by her ice. Elisha then sent a message to the other guards. They all went to the gates to prepare for what was coming. Elisha instructed the princess to hide with the people as they hold the enemies off. The princess rejected the offer and told them what kind of leader would she be if she let her guards have all the fun. She had a lot of pride for an 18-year-old who did not age. She further told them that she might not have her powers, but she still had her sword and a little fight in her. Elisha was used to her pride. He told her to do as she pleases. Teen told them that she was going to meet up with the other guards on the northwest gate. The princess applauded her and told them that they will start their invasion there and she will go with her. She then told Elisha that she will leave the safety of the people to him and that he should remember that the people are the nation, not the land. With those words and the responsibility placed in his shoulders, Elisha assured the princess that he will keep the people safe. Teen and the princess went to the northwest gate, and Elisha went far east to the evacuation camp. Elisha arrived, and he saw that the people were scared, and to keep them calm, he told them that their nation will be under attack soon, and their princess has lost her powers, and she cannot prevent the attack from happening. He further explained, as everyone's anxiousness became more visible. He assured them that evacuating is the most reasonable action the princess took in order to avoid more deaths. Everyone started to calm down as Elisha began to use his powers. He touched the ground with his right hand. Elisha had the power to freeze time around anything he touches and create a space within that exists outside the normal time. As impressive his power was, they were not anywhere close to what the princess could wield. When he touched the ground, he spoke to the people and told them he will create a temporary home for them until their leader recovers her powers, and they will take back their true home. He then turned the surroundings into a fortress made of ice, and suddenly people saw themselves in a new land as if they were teleported to another nation. He assured them that no enemy will be able to reach them there, and suddenly disappeared. Teen and the princess finally arrived at the northwest gate. She was warmly greeted by her identical twin sister, Lean. Lean is also known as the Angel of Light. She possesses unimaginable abilities. She can fly and wields a sword called the Flying Sun. Like her sister, she is part of the Royal Guards, the elite force of Asamalak. Teen explained to her sister about the threat they are facing. While the sisters were sharing strategies, Mikkel, another member of the Royal Guards, arrived. He is also known as the Cold Front. He can throw air punches that would leave his enemies frozen to death. In total, there were 3 guards, and the princess holding off the northwest gate. I don't know if it was confidence or suicidal to only have 4 people standing against an army of monsters and witches, but the princess seemed resolved and ready to meet any enemy. The king of Irotagarap Alucard arrived with his army of monsters and witches in the northwest gate. One of the leading witches broke the shield that was protecting the skies of Asamalak. Other witches cast multiple spells and managed to break the gate. Alucard was suspicious of how easy it was to infiltrate their shields, but quickly brushed it off as his eyes met with those of the princess. The 3 guards standing behind her, ready to engage the enemies. Lean noticed flying monsters hoarding the skies. She immediately flew to meet them. Teen disappeared into the shadows. Alucard and his army, surprised by the twins, began to move forwards toward the princess and Mikkel, who were left standing in front of an overwhelming army. Alucard spoke boldly like a predator that has just cornered its prey. "What do you expect to do now that you lost your powers? I can destroy you with just a snap of my fingers if I want. I am known as the Merciful." The witches and monsters behind him laughed. He then continued to boast, telling the princess how he can save her people from meeting unnecessary deaths. "I have decided. I will keep you as my pet and let you control your people to do my bidding," Alucard insisted. Princess Ibanez was infuriated by Alucard's words, but she calmly replied, "If this is your grand evil plan, I guess you just have to come up with a new one. I do not need my powers to destroy you. I only need my sword." Ibanez wielded a golden sword with a blue crystal-like color at the tip. She stabbed the sword on the ground, and a huge diamond-like wall appeared between her and Alucard, which covered the entire western line. The creatures tried to break the wall, but the wall was indestructible, which angered Alucard. He scolded them, "Do I have to do everything by myself?" He unsheathed his sword that he was carrying on his left hand and sliced open the wall with ease. The creatures charged through the gap created by Alucard, but Mikkel was ready for them. He immediately launched an air punch from his left fist. A cold breeze forcefully blew towards the creatures. The poor creatures that charged had no idea what they got themselves into. Hundreds of creatures froze to their deaths. One of the witches tried to create a shield to protect some of the creatures from freezing, but Mikkel's fist was too strong. The red-haired Grand Witch Kaina raised her wooden stick, and the breeze stopped as if the wind ran out of batteries. Most of the creatures were saved from completely freezing to death. Some creatures charged to attack the princess, but Teen suddenly appeared in front of them. She took out a dark sword and sliced through the air. The creatures disappeared one after the other. You could see the concerns from Alucard and Kaina. Kaina raised her stick again, but it did not stop the creatures from disappearing. Teen's dark sword has the ability to teleport anything with a shadow into the shadow realm, where those who can manipulate shadows rule. All creatures she cut with her shadow wind ability were trapped in her shadow realm. Alucard irritated, he turned, and with a single look at Kaina, the Grand Witch was overwhelmed with fear. She spoke a word with a dark, loud voice, Esira, which caused a wall to appear between the creatures that were still clinging to life and Teen. The wall managed to absorb the attack from Teen. Alucard smiled as murmured to himself, "That is some impressive powers your guards have. This makes it even more fun to add you all into my army." For someone who just lost hundreds of his army, he looked too relaxed. Things did not look good for an army that was facing only 4 people. The skies raining blood, Lean is floating fearlessly confronting thousands of flying creatures. She raised her sword, which looked like a shining light trapped in a sword. A bright light came out of the sword and shot straight to the wall created by Kaina. The wall exploded, the bright light continued charging towards the creatures on the ground. All the witches raised their staffs and wands, which created a force field that finally stopped the light from going further. Alucard smiled and turned his attention to Lean in the sky. "I am impressed, young girl. It took an army of witches to stop your attack. I must say, the information we got about your abilities does you no justice. But if you all thought I relied on my army's abilities to win this war, it will be foolish of you. 3 guards and a powerless princess. Is that all you have to offer? I do not need an army to go to war, but I have to admit I never thought you would be this powerful." He turned to meet the princess's eyes. The princesses could feel that a monster is about to do something dangerous. She shouted and warned Mikkel and Teen to move back quickly. Alucard shouted, "Nepo won!" The ground started to shake. A split like an earthquake charging towards the princess, she quickly grabbed her sword that was still rooted on the ground to create an ice shield for her, Teen and Mikkel. But the quake was too strong her to handle. The shield broke from the impact they got pushed far backwards. They were all covered with bruises. Alucard suddenly did not seem like someone you would want to face in a battle. Can Princess Ibanez and her guards survive against this monster? It felt like I was watching my soccer team winning for the entire 90 minutes, only to lose at extra time. With hope seemed to be lost, Lean was still fighting the 1,000 flying creatures. She seemed to be having the advantage, but suddenly the air in the sky became heavy, and she was pressed downwards by the air pressure. She fell to the ground not far from the others. When she looked up, she saw Erosic flapping his wings so fast, like he has weaponized the wind to target anything that is in front of him. Lean tried to block the heavy air pressure, but she left herself vulnerable to the long-range attacks from the witches. An injured Teen worried about her sister cut through the air with her sword that countered those long-range attacks. There was nothing they could do to turn the tides. Alacia suddenly appeared next to the princess, who was heavily injured. He spoke, "It is done, princess." Alucard and Kaina seemed to be on guard. Alacia's sudden appearance was a concern to Alucard. He was more curious of what Alacia said to the princess. He swung his sword towards the princess and Alacia, which caused a sudden air pressure that shot straight to them. Alacia placed both his hands on the ground, and all the guards as well as the princess disappeared, followed by an ice wall surrounding Alacia, which blocked Alucard's attack. Alucard amazed to see someone who blocked his powerful attack without even getting a single bruise. His expression quickly changed as he realized that the princess was teleported. He looked angry as he demanded an answer from Alacia. "Where did they go? Where did you send them?" Alacia ignored him and placed his hands again on the ground. He then looked at Alucard and spoke. "Are you not curious of what I can do, Alucard?" Anger swallowed Alucard. He raised his sword. A dark cloud devoured what little light was available. Alacia quickly reached his sword from his back, like his life depended on it. His sword looked like it was half burning and half frozen. He then spoken. I was planning to take you on all by myself, but I will leave that to my princess." He then rooted his sword on the ground, and suddenly fire came out of the ground and consumed all that it touched. The witches and creatures were destroyed one after the other, and that did not end there. The sky froze, and Erosic fell down to the ground, only to get his wings burned by the fire. Frozen spikes fell down from the sky, and those who were trying to avoid the flames on the ground were getting hit by a rain of frozen spikes. Alucard, standing in the middle of all the screams, was not fazed. He looked at Elisha and thought to himself, "Kid, you are an Icelander, yet you pose as the fire element as well. Who are you?" He quickly dismissed his thoughts and spoke, "You are too dangerous to keep alive." He placed his sword on his back and raised his hand. He suddenly disappeared. Elisha looked concerned. He then froze time around him and saw Alucard moving so fast towards him. Alucard disappeared again and suddenly appeared behind Elisha. Elisha quickly unrooted his sword and raised it, which created a fire circle around him like a shield. Alucard was surprised how the fire quickly appeared, which forced him to step back. Time around Elisha started to move again. Alucard was still determined to kill Elisha as he approached him while saying, "Kid, death is too good for you. I will send you to the void." Suddenly, a dark hole appeared underneath Elisha. He was not quick enough to react. He was swallowed by the void. Alucard laughed like a madman. "Kid, where you are going, there is no hope of returning to this world of the living." He then commanded what was left of his army to attack anything that moved and find the princess. His army of witches, wizards, and creatures started to spread out, and they were destroying the buildings, but later realized that there was no one in those buildings. They reported back to Alucard, and he was furious. He said to the army, "It was expected from a city ruled by a kid. She ran away. At least I had more fun than I ever had in a long time. I wonder what would have happened if she still had her powers." He commanded his army to spread out, gather weapons, and set camp in preparation for another war with Anukes. Alucard has taken over Asimalok. The balance of power has now shifted. He intends to carry attacks from Asimalok, which will stretch Anukes' defenses. Is it even possible to stop this powerful monster?